Hello, RDs and RDs to be. Welcome to the RD Exam Ready podcast. I'm Zach Caseberg, your tutor, coach, and guide along the path of passing the RD exam. My biggest passion is to help RDs to be and RDs just like you to know how to pass the CDR exam. If that sounds like you, then hey, you're in the right place. I've got a great opportunity for those listening to this presently in December of 2025. I want to start by offering a new opportunity and some free sessions to you people. And what I would like to do is I'd like to offer and do a live YouTube session for all of you. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be holding a live YouTube session on YouTube on December 17th, 2025. That's Wednesday, December 17th, 2025. We're going to hold this at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific time. That's 6 o'clock Mountain, 7 o'clock Central, and 8 o'clock Eastern time. This session is something I want to do for all of you. I always love doing some free and live sessions for people, and I want to give this as an opportunity for you to come study with me. What are we going to study? Oh, just my favorite topic, vitamins to know for exam day. So go to my YouTube page, RD Exam Ready, subscribe to the page if you haven't, and you can go to the live area and get notified of the upcoming session. Or just take a look in the description of this podcast and get the link for the future live session. Let's review some vitamins together in that future session. But today, we're going to do something different. Today, what we're talking about is how to kind of create and curate interventions. We're going to talk about behavioral models and theories for behavior change. There's been a number of these theories and models that have been developed and tested and used to explain why our patients engage in the behaviors that they do. Some strategies and models are out there just to target attitudes or beliefs, like motivational interviewing. Some theories are out there to target behavior change, like goal setting and problem solving. A key point to each of these theories that we go through is you always need to know and understand your population before you come up with an intervention. Especially in questions, make a note of this because a question might ask you to look at the theory or it might ask you to look at what should you do before a theory. But today, let's go through 5 to 6 of the common theories that we need to know for the RD exam. Starting with the trans-theoretical model, which is meant to describe an individual's motivation and readiness to change. That's why it's called the stages of change model. I want to point out there's 3 assumptions to this theory, and I don't need you to memorize all of them, but I want you to hear and understand them. They're fairly obvious, but let's talk through them. Okay? So with these, one is that behavior change involves a series of different steps. 2, there's common stages amongst all different health behaviors that are shared. And 3, meeting people where they're at in stages of change is much more successful than going ahead of them. There's 5 stages I need you to know for exam day and be familiar with, so say them out loud with me if you already know them. That'll be pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, and maintenance. Let's go through each. Pre-contemplation is where an individual is either unaware or not interested in making a change. Contemplation is where we're thinking about making a change, hopefully within the next 6 months, but we haven't put anything concrete together. Preparation is meaning we're actively deciding to change. We're going to make a change usually within the next month or so, maybe even we've tried change in the past. Action is when an individual is trying to make the desired change and has been working to make the change for less than 6 months, and maintenance is when an individual has sustained that behavior change for 6 months or longer. As an RD, you need to know how do we move people along these stages, along this continuum, and know what the best response would be in each of these steps. Let's walk through each strategy that we should pursue to help someone move forward in these stages. In pre-contemplation, we need to go ahead and build some type of self-awareness and discuss the risks and benefits of the patient's current behavior. We want to make sure that we acknowledge that they may have some ambivalence or some hesitation to making a change, understand that, and still walk through the fact that they probably do need to make a change sometime in the future, right? It's like if they don't know that there's a problem or they're not aware, how are we going to move them forward? So we have to make them aware that it is a problem and that a problem does exist. In contemplation, that's when we're thinking about making a change. We just haven't made any. We would want to, in this stage, explore the pros and cons of making a change, and it would be a good stage to also assess if the patient has the knowledge and attitudes and values to go through this. Let's make sure that they're making the right changes that we want them to, since they're right on the border of making change. What are some things that you can think of that they need to do to help them to go forward in this stage? What are some of the barriers that they need to break down before engaging in the change? So I'll identify those behaviors, I'll try and decrease them, and ultimately, in trying to give them the encouragement to jump out of the nest and make the moves, right? In preparation, they're preparing to do something, and maybe they've even started doing small things, all right? In this stage, we're going to want to reinforce those small accomplishments that they've already made and help facilitate an action plan of what they're going to do and when they're going to do it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to continue to resolve some of that ambivalence that they have about making changes and help give them the tools they need to start making the change. Now, once they're in action, we're just trying to maintain their progress. So we're trying to provide some self help materials, provide them with things that can continue to maintain what they've been doing, maybe even refer them to a behavioral program or give them some self management tools like a food diary or whatever it is. Finally, in maintenance, we're trying to maintain, and we have maintained the action for 6 months or longer. So we need to encourage more self monitoring so that they stick with it. That could be things like linking with support groups, using self management apps, getting assistance or some specialized coaching, and talking through high risk situations that may cause them to relapse. We see that a lot of times in different types of areas of science where you have to be able to identify the behaviors or situations that may cause a relapse. So that's a big piece of this puzzle as well, too. Our next topic that we're going to go through is going to be motivational interviewing. Motivational interviewing, if you've ever worked one on one with counseling, you know a lot about it. It's very centered on the client to patient relationship, the practitioner to the client relationship. It's a way of interacting with the client that actively helps them to explore and resolve their own uncertainty about change and help them move forward. Now, there's four general principles of motivational interviewing that I need you to be familiar with. I don't know if we need to memorize them all, but we need to use this acronym to help us out. RULE, RULE, which stands for resist, understand, listen, and empower. This is RULE. By resist, we mean resisting the righting reflex, which is your urge to confront the client about their need to change. We need to resist that. We don't want to do that and push them too hard. The second principle is to elicit meaning, to gain or acquire and understand the client's own motivations, to understand why do you want to make these change. Okay. For the third, we're going to want to listen, okay? Make sure we're listening to them, okay? Actively listening to them a lot of time to make sure that we are understanding them. And fourthly, we need to make sure that we empower the client to make encouraging decisions for themselves, okay? To tell them, hey, you have the power, you have the ability, you have the self efficacy to make behavioral change. Now, there's a few different strategies that you're going to use to help them along these principles. One could be the importance ruler. Importance ruler is a technique that I use as a practitioner to say, how important is this to you, client? So I say, John, how important is it for you to lose weight? It's kind of putting the ball in his court to say, how important is this? Really, tell me. You also want to use open-ended questioning in motivational interviewing. And an open-ended question is any question that can't be answered with a yes or a no. So instead of saying, is this important to you? Say, how important is this to you? You want to practice reflective listening as a practitioner, where you're paraphrasing your clients with emphasis on the change talk and helping to keep that momentum towards that change. This sounds a lot like this. You've identified behaviors such as skipping breakfast and skipping meals during the day, and then overeating at dinner as something you have concerns about. You see how I'm kind of paraphrasing and kind of talking about how they've identified it? They're initiating the change talk. That's what we're looking for with that. Now, within affirmations, hopefully you give yourself affirmations all the time. Affirmations are just supportive kind of statements towards self efficacy, like this. What I'm hearing you say is that you've already been going to the gym. That's great. It seems like you're really enjoying those classes. See those affirmations there? You're helping to keep them up. Then we need to do summarizing. Summarizing is done for the end of the session, and you're summarizing what you and the client has talked about, kind of what your action plan is moving forward. So it can help to cover what we've just talked about, and it's going to draw attention to the important elements of the session. Brenda, based on our discussion today, it seems like you're really committed on trying to reach a healthy weight for your body, and you recognize there's some specific behaviors holding you back. But you feel with a good, consistent gym routine, you're going to be able to work towards those goals. This is a great example of a summarizing statement in motivational interviewing. Now, your next one is the health belief model. I love the health belief model. I think it's so interesting. It looks at your readiness to initiate a health behavior and what contributes to it. There's three components that really factor in here. The first is that the individual has to perceive a threat to health in order to engage in the healthy behavior, meaning they perceive that their health is at risk based on what they're doing. That could be contracting a disease, or they're concerned that the disease could carry serious consequences. Okay. My example here is this. Let's say that the unhealthy behavior is unsafe sex. Okay. Let's say non protected sex, right? So, for people that engage in non protective sex, if they want to change this behavior, they need to perceive that they could contract a disease or a virus. Perhaps they realize that they could contract HIV as a result of unprotected sex. So they see that as a threat. Or they realize what HIV could do to my body later in life. That has to be something that they realize and perceive if they are going to change that behavior at all. The second component is how the individual perceives that a certain behavior will have benefits to them. So that could be, well, what does a 50-year-old man perceive as the benefit of consuming high fiber foods? Does he perceive a benefit at all to doing that? So you have to perceive that there is a benefit of some kind. The third component is self-advocacy, or the feeling that they have the ability to execute the behavior on their own. So for the health belief model, it's purely your belief that you can do it. If that's weight loss that you're trying to do, that's you actually believing that you can lose weight and that it's possible. All in all, to summarize the health belief model, what we do is we need to make sure that we're focusing on people are going to engage in healthy behaviors if they feel that what they're doing now is a threat to them. I love going to smoking as an example here, okay? When someone starts smoking at 18 or 21 in your state, perhaps, they don't care about lung cancer. They don't. They don't care about asthma, COPD, lung cancer, nothing. You're young. Why would you care about those things? But as you get older, you start perceiving that threat a bit more. You see other people die as a result of it. You start having your own asthma, your own COPD. Doctor tells you you do have lung cancer. Well, now you're really perceiving the threat of what you're doing and how it's impacting your health, right? It becomes very serious. So now you realize that and you make change based on that. That's what the health belief model is focused on. A different theory here is the theory of planned behavior. It's our next topic, and it predicts a person's intention to perform a behavior in a well-defined setting. According to the model, individual behavior is determined by someone's intention, and by intention, what they mean is the background in the lead up of what we tell ourselves before we make a behavior change. It's kind of confusing a little bit, but I want to give some context. Some people will do a behavior based on the attitudes or subjective norms, the attitudes being how they individually feel about a behavior, such as losing weight or exercising or eating more fruits and vegetables. So the theory of planned behavior is saying, okay, what's your attitude about making the change? Then that'll help to dictate if you will make the change. Then the other piece of it is the subjective norms. And that's kind of what's happening around you, the societal norms of how people look at you as you're making the change. So it's the perceived social pressure to do or not do a behavior. A good behavior or a good example is that of weight management, right? The positive attitude is that people feel like if they lose weight, they will be healthier. So that's their kind of positive perceived attitude of it, right? Then they'll look at subjective norms, which is looking at, well, how do people around me feel about me losing weight? If people around you are positive and supportive about you losing weight, then that's going to help you feel like that you can lose weight. Makes a lot of sense to me. Just take those 2 points, attitudes, subjective norms, and stick those together there. The social cognitive theory describes how an individual's thoughts, environments all factor into the behaviors. There's some key concepts on how they can influence behavioral interventions that are used in social cognitive theory. And I don't want to bog you down with every key concept, but here's a few pieces of social cognitive that we should just be aware of. We know that the environment has factors that physically provide opportunities or provide social support to make behavior change. Reciprocal determinism is a term that's used in the text, and it's kind of that dynamic interaction between the person and the behavior and in the environment. By understanding that we can use certain intervention strategies to help them work through and balance all these components together. Okay, we can balance your environment, yourself, your behavior. We can get all these together. Self regulation is their ability to make decisions for themselves. It's kind of their ability to make decisions for themselves that they're sticking to their goals. Behavioral capacity is kind of the ability of the knowledge and skill to perform a given behavior. So it's good for a practitioner to make sure that they're assessing that the patient has the knowledge, has the skill to make the change. We also want them to have adequate expectations or value placed on the outcomes, so the belief that they're going to meet their goals, the behavior, that it's all going to match up in that way. So we make sure that in social cognitive theory, we're making all of these things match up as much as possible. We're also looking into the reinforcements, so the responses to a person's behavior that increase or decrease the likelihood of recurrence. And of course, give them things like affirmations, encouragement, making sure that they're knowing that they can give themselves rewards when they've earned them and incentives from when they've earned them to help them to move forward here. Okay, social cognitive theory is done. 2 more to go through. Cognitive behavioral therapy. It's the thought that all behavior is learned and directly related to internal factors and external factors, how I feel about things and the things around me. And there's several strategies that are used during this to help you through cognitive behavioral theory, to work through those internal and external factors. Okay, so there's some things that we would use through there. One thing would be like self-monitoring, providing self-monitoring tools and education, like a food tracker, giving them coaching and reviewing eating patterns and assisting them with goal setting. These would all be great ways that we could go through goal setting to really help them to identify their own potential goals, and really help them to say, all right, internally, this is what I want from this. We'd want to assist the client with problem solving and identifying what the problem is, weighing the pros and cons of potential solutions to the problem, and adjusting our strategy if needed. We also need to engage in stimulus control, especially for that internal part of us, to look at those self-monitoring ways, those triggers to overeating, to smoking, to whatever it is, and assist them, pardon me, and assist them with giving themselves good quality rewards when they've earned them and reinforcing only if the criteria is met. Lastly, another kind of construct of this is cognitive restructuring, which is how you help the client to modify their thoughts and their feelings to replace those irrational thoughts and replace negative self-talk, right? So, for cognitive behavior theory, let's just remember there's internal and external factors, and both of those are equally important in influencing behavior change for our clients. Diffusion of innovation theory is our final theory that we're going to talk about. It's a model that explains how new ideas, products, or practices spread throughout the social system over time. If I use AI as an example for here, you have some people that are innovators or early adopters who started using AI 10 years ago, right? And then you're going to have people like late majority or laggards who say, I don't want to use AI. And maybe they won't use AI for another 10 years or so, perhaps, and maybe they never will decide to use AI at any point. So that's kind of one key element of this is just knowing that there's some people that are going to adopt innovation very early and some that won't. Now, there's 5 stages to this innovation process. One is knowledge, where someone is first exposed that this innovation exists. 2 is persuasion, that they have the interest to want to look into this and want to look into AI. 3 is decision, that they decide that they want to do it, what the advantages or disadvantages are. Implementation, they start using AI, they start using this innovation. And then confirmation, which confirmation is just them really telling themselves, hey, did I make the right decision? Do I need to change what my decision was? Maybe I don't need to use AI. So that's what diffusion of innovation theory is just how new things come into our society. Now, let's apply this to some practice questions as we go through. Number 1, a patient is referred to an RD with recommendations to follow the DASH diet due to their hypertension. The patient tells the RD, I know I should watch my salt intake, but I don't know how to cook or eat without using too much salt. This patient is in which stage of the trans theoretical model? A, pre-contemplation, B, contemplation, C, preparation, or D, action. A patient is referred to an RD with recommendations to follow the DASH diet due to their hypertension. The patient tells the RD, I know I should watch my salt intake, but I don't know how to cook or eat without using too much salt. Which stage are they in the model? A, B, C, and D. For A, pre-contemplation, this does not sound like this patient is in pre-contemplation to me. It seems like they are aware of a problem in some way, they just haven't made much action towards doing it. I would get rid of A based on this. B, contemplation. I think contemplation is a good fit for this question. It does feel like the patient they are aware of a problem, they just haven't taken any steps to doing so. I'm going to hold on to B. C, preparation. This would be that the patient is preparing to make change, maybe within the next month. It doesn't sound like that they're really preparing to make any change, so I don't think preparation would be a good fit. And action. Action would be they've done the thing, they're engaging in it for less than 6 months, but it doesn't sound like we're at this phase to be. Based on this and process of elimination, I would say my best answer is this patient is in contemplation for the trans theoretical model. Number 2, which of the following is not one of the 4 principles of motivational interviewing? Not one of the 4 principles. Okay. A, resisting the writing reflex. B, evoke and explore client's own perceptions. C, confront the client about their need to change. Or D, empower and support self-efficacy. Okay, so I'm going to use process of elimination to see what my best answer is. A, resisting the writing reflex. This does feel like it's one of the principles of motivational interviewing. I want to I want to get rid of that one because I'm looking for which one is not one of the 4 principles. B, evoke and explore client's own perceptions. So evoke means to kind of get more information, right? It does feel like I'm trying to evoke. I do want to evoke and get more info and explore the client's perception. That seems like a good principle for motivational interviewing, and I'm going to rule that out. C, confront the client about their need to change. Okay, this might be one that I think would be a good answer. This does not feel like one of the 4 principles of motivational interviewing. And D, empower and support self-efficacy. This also feels like it would be a good fit for one of the principles, so I would rule that one out. So, which of the following is not one of the four principles of motivational interviewing? I would go with C. Confront the client about their need to change. This would not be something conducive in motivational interviewing. It would not be a good fit. Number three, the health belief model explains that an individual will engage in a health behavior if A. The behavior is accepted by the majority of people. B. The behavior is innovative to society. C. They feel readiness to change. Or D. They perceive benefits to changing their behavior. Okay, let's go through each. For A, the behavior is accepted by the majority of people. This is not part of the health belief model. It didn't talk much about societal acceptance. I'm going to rule A out. That's not a good fit. B, the behavior is innovative to society. This also just doesn't feel right to me as far as the health belief model. C, they feel readiness to change. Maybe I'll put a question mark on that one. Or D, they perceive benefits to changing their behavior. I think D is our best fit because one of the constructs of the health belief model was that people perceive that there is a benefit to changing their behavior. So I feel like D would have to be our best fit for number three. That wraps up today's lesson, students. I hope you watched, listened, learned, and enjoyed today's show. Remember to join us on YouTube Live, RD Exam Ready. We're going to do a live session focusing on vitamins on December 17th at 7 o'clock Central. That's going to be, let me go through all my time zones, 5 o'clock Pacific, 6 o'clock Mountain, 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern Time on December 17th, 2025. Please come join, come up with your questions. We're going to go through vitamins during that time, and I think we're going to have a great time. Remember, passing this exam is a journey. We all need assistance along the way. Do yourself, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button if you haven't. Tell other students, rate, review, subscribe, comment, whatever. And remember, as always, happy studying to you, RD to be.